and thank everyone for being here. As I understand it, and we have Tom, Joel, Jerry, Ken, Aaron, and that's it. Tom, Joel, Joey, Jaron, Ken, Joey, Jerry, Ken, Aaron, and me. We don't have Joe Roberts, and of course we have that position that's in limbo with District 4. Just to bring you up to date, you've got, if you've checked your email today, you have quite a handful of material. I printed all of mine out, and it's a nice big packet. It is notes and minutes from prior meetings. And I want to thank Nancy Brown for all of the time and due diligence she's put into this. This is not an easy task to put all this together, but it will be great for us to have tonight and going forward. If you haven't had a chance to print it off or read it, take your time to do that, because we're not going to do anything with it tonight other than maybe refer to it. But we will be approving the minutes at the September meeting, which is a normal meeting of the Planning Commission. In the package, you've got meeting minutes, workshop notes, Planning Commission workshops, and notes from the citizen forums that we've had. This is our third meeting this week. So if Mike or Brian or some of us get a little slap happy, it's because we've been there, done that the past past week twice already. We were here last night. Unfortunately, we've not had really good turnout. We had input from 3 people on the meeting last Thursday, 2 of whom came in and spoke to us via voice over the phone, and one of them sent an email and posed some questions. The questions came from City Commissioner of Crescent City, Lisa King DeVito. I have since touched base with her, and we spoke at length on Friday, and then she was called away and we haven't finished our conversation. She said she would call me back. I will get back with her if I don't hear from her by tomorrow. We also had comment coming in from Michael Woodward and also Craig Sherrar. And you'll see the notes concerning what they said in the packet. Last night we had a meeting that no one attended. We called the meeting to order, and we said we're going to give them 5 minutes. We gave them about 15, and nobody came in, so we adjourned the meeting. So the 2 meetings that we have added on to the schedule have not yielded a whole lot of input from citizens. I'm not sure that. Let's hold off on that just a minute. The initials are what? GA. Okay. Give us just a minute. Last night, Mike and Jim and I had a chance to talk a good bit about going forward and where we stand and what we're going to do. Tonight, we're going to get through those 4 elements we didn't get through last meeting. The September 9th meeting, which is a regular meeting of the Planning Commission, we will go through the minutes and approve the minutes from the meetings that are here. We are not approving minutes from any of the workshops, and we certainly aren't from any of the forum that were held. Those are just for informational purposes only. We have been in contact, both Jim and Mike and I, with Brian Bergen at the Chamber, and have talked with him at length. We're continuing those conversations. They're giving us some good input, and we are grateful for what they're doing and grateful for their willingness to participate with us and help us out. We're especially working with them on the economic development element that we might not do too much with tonight because they're still going through that. One of the things we talked about last night going forward was to do what the County Commission is doing with public input. While we welcome anyone who wants to come and listen or watch on YouTube, or certainly watch the YouTube videos afterwards, we're going to limit input to email only. And it's not going to be synchronous email in real time. It will be email that needs to come into Mike Brown prior to the meeting. The meeting for September 9th has been advertised. The advertisement was put in today, or was developed today. And it's going to state just that. So we're going to go forward with that. September 9th, we're going to be spending a lot of time looking at the map. And we talked last night about how we're going to handle that and what we're going to do. Brian Teeple is going to be leading that conversation, but he's working with his GIS department, and hopefully they're going to be able to break the map out by commissioner district. So those of you who are district specific or were appointed by your district will be able to look closely at just where you are, just where you were appointed from. We want everybody to look at the whole map. But we're also going to put a large size map in the lobby of the Planning and Development Department so people can have a chance to look at it there. They will put it on the Facebook, or not on Facebook, but on the website. And they're working to see if they can get it to be clickable, that can be enlarged and zoomed in and zoomed out. I know some people are used to using the county GIS system. I'm not sure that we want to go to that level with this, but anyhow, that's being worked on. We do have a speaker card from one individual tonight. It's Jake Kramer, who has spoken to the board in the past. He spoke at the last workshop we had, or the last meeting we had. It was our regular meeting. And we asked him at that time to please address all future comments, concerns, issues, and ideas in writing to Mike Brown. He has submitted today a speaker's request card. We are going to honor that. The speaker request card notes that it's a 3-minute period, and we will honor that for a 3-minute period and remind him that all input from now on needs to go in via email. Any questions, heartburn, concerns, criticisms? Best
I would
wishes?
like to get the dates right. Now, September, for some reason in my calendar, I have September 8th, but it's September 9th is the
It's September,
next commission.
which is the Wednesday, Joel?
It's the Wednesday is the, I'm pretty sure it's the 9th.
Our meeting will be on Wednesday.
I have it on the 8th.
Our meeting will be on the second Wednesday.
And what time is that meeting?
That meeting is 4 p.m. That's a regular meeting.
4 p.m. That's what time I have it. I just had the wrong day. Okay.
And we have not scheduled anything after that yet. We're getting to the point where this is all coming together.
Yeah.
We'll have a meeting probably. Go ahead.
Is the meeting on the 9th? Is that going to be a
9th?
Zoom meeting, or is it going to be a in-person meeting?
Jim?
Madam Chair, until the CDC provides new guidance and the chair and the BOCC changes their procedures, we will remain on Zoom.
Okay, thank you, Jim. I know that's difficult, and I know it is an impediment for some people, but it's allowed us to get some work done.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Just as far as you said, the public comment was only going to be limited to email, and it was not going to be like live where they could send
It'll be the same way the county commission is handling it. The way the county commission is going to be handling things per their county attorney.
Okay, but they read the question and they sort of answer it during the meeting. Okay.
Correct. Yes. Any emails we get will be read at the meeting and will be handled at the meeting.
And there was a deadline to turn them in before the meeting.
I believe, what have we put in the advertisement, Jim?
I'm not certain. I just think we put in there to contact Mike Brown. So, Madam Chair, if they sent the email now and Mike was on his system, he would be able to provide it to the group. However, it would be most prudent for them to do it before. So,
yes,
I think that's the emphasis in the language.
Yes, okay. Thank you. Prior.
One question, Madam Chair. Does the commission desire to get those as soon as I get them, or would you like me to collect them and send them in a package?
What's the preference of the commission? Aaron, what's your thought on that?
I would think, if you have several, days in advance, that would be good. So we could look at whatever the questions are, but I'm sure some people may even send them as the meeting's going on and they're watching it. At least I think we have that capability, is what I just heard.
We do. It depends on who's engaged in.
Right.
So
I would anticipate I'll get some. There will be some that will come in very early. There will be some people who send them in probably as early as next week. And I'm just wondering if you wanted me to just forward those as I get them in to all the members.
Why don't you forward what you get by the end of next week as a group, and then forward what you have at noon on the day of the meeting?
Okay.
Does that sound reasonable?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
Are these questions, are they going to be for cases or for the review?
They will be concerning the comprehensive plan.
Only review. That's right. Fine.
Now, Mike, we don't have any cases coming up.
No, I just wanted to bring that up. We have one case that will be coming at that meeting. It's a amendment to a PUD. It's real. My take is it's pretty simple. They're just wanting to adjust one of the setbacks, the side setbacks. I don't think it'll be controversial, but it will be coming forward at that meeting.
Okay. It's not something that we've dealt with recently that's had controversy attached to it?
No.
Okay.
No. It's across the street, though. But we in the ad, we've also I believe indicated the same type of approach. Send in any comments early for that case. So we will have those early.
And will we have the applicant or the applicant's agent available via Zoom?
Yes.
Okay. All righty. Okay. Do we have any? We have one person waiting in the queue, right, Jacob?
Yes.
All right. You want to go ahead and let that person in so we can see who it is and talk with them briefly? Okay. Is that Mr. Kramer? There was an 813 number that popped up on my screen.
Yeah, it's
yes. Hi, Madam Chair. This is Jake Kramer.
Hi, Mr. Kramer. We have received your speaker's request card, and we are going to give you your 3 minutes tonight. However, we want to remind you that we talked about last meeting that your comments and questions and interests and ideas to please be emailed directly to Mike Brown prior to the meeting. We're trying to close up some things and finish up some things. And while we want your input, we would like to have it in writing. Is that understandable?
Yes, Madam Chair. And I provided a letter on Monday, so I'm not sure. It sounds like that might not have been distributed yet.
What was the letter you provided on Monday? Was that a summary of the meeting that was held on July 30th? No, Jake, I can respond to that. And I do apologize to you. I got that email that you sent in, and you're correct. It has not been forwarded to the commission members yet. It will be tomorrow morning. It is sort of a follow-up to the summary that I did provide to the planning. But it's a little more detailed than that summary that Mr. Kramer had provided earlier in the last week. Well, Mr. Kramer, we certainly appreciate your interest in what we're doing, and we assure you that we want to hear your comments and we want to see your comments. We're just, like I say, at the point where we're trying to wrap everything up and we need things in writing because of the Zoom format and how we're handling things right now. And we have to stay Zoom. So there's no question there. So what would you like to share with us tonight?
Well, Madam Chair, since I've submitted everything in writing, I will, I won't take up your time tonight. I just, with how quickly things are moving, I didn't know, whether there were going to be specific items tonight. And so I was calling to listen in and just let you know that, I did provide that in writing and would have gotten it to you earlier. But, Mike was kind enough to have some conversations with me about, his follow-up from the last meeting a couple of weeks ago. And so, my comments, I wanted to make sure I was addressing the most up-to-date draft that I had reviewed. And so, I think we've made a lot of progress on the items I had discussed with Mike on, especially on agricultural BMP issues and some other issues. So they've been submitted, and, I'm happy to respond if anyone has questions after you look at those, if you need more information on anything. So, just really appreciate everybody listening and taking the time.
Well, we have a number of people with ag interests that we're getting input from, and we're looking at all of it together, and we'll assure you we'll look at yours as well. Can't guarantee that we're going to do something that you might recommend, but I can guarantee you that we will look at it and take it under advisement. You might also like to know that we are in direct contact with representatives of the Chamber of Commerce, and we are working with them quite thoroughly right now with the Economic Development section, and we're working with the members of the Chamber of Commerce, their leadership, and we'll continue to do that. We've had several meetings already, one way or the other, via phone or in person, and we have more scheduled to come up in the future. So we are working directly now with the Chamber of Commerce.
Great. Well, I'm glad to hear that, and appreciate your time. I wasn't able to listen in until I was let into the room. If I don't want to take up any more of your time, but I just wanted to find out if any certain dates have been set yet for further consideration of the plan updates.
We have a regularly scheduled meeting of the Putnam County Planning Commission on September the 9th, which is a Wednesday at 4 p.m. We will be doing regular business of the Planning Commission at that time, and we will probably be looking at the future land use map at that meeting. The consultants and staff are working on that, and we'll be bringing that back to us for consideration at that time. That will be primarily what we will be doing at the September 9th meeting. We have not set any meetings beyond that. However, we are likely to have another workshop, which will be a board workshop with, okay, that was your time up. I'll take credit for that. And that will be a board workshop similar to what tonight is. And so we will, if we do schedule another meeting in September, like I say, it will be a workshop. That has not been scheduled or set yet. Following that, second Wednesday in October.
Sure, I appreciate it. I appreciate your time. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, folks, let's look at any questions about the meeting notes that you have that have come in and were in the email that we got this morning from Nancy.
Honestly, I haven't had a chance to review all of it yet.
I understand it's quite a voluminous package.
Yeah. I would kind of like to get an idea, are we on the same time frame as far as
completion?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's kind of
rushing. We're putting a dart in it. We're going to stretch it out a little bit more.
Okay.
And Mr. Turner has indicated he wants it done well. He doesn't want it done fast just to get it done.
Okay.
We may be able to get it to the commission sometime in the latter meeting in October. And that's a goal. It's a better goal than the first meeting now. And depending on how everything comes back to us from Kimley Horn and how well we do with the map next meeting, we've got some wrinkles we've got to work through in ag. You want to mute yourself, Ken?
Well, you tell me how you do that.
Jacob, can you do it?
There you go. He got it.
Okay. We've got to work through a lot of the density issues. I'm sure we're going to massage those more. And with looking at the map, we're going to be looking at the urban service, urban reserve, ag 1 and 2 being combined. So I'm sure there are going to be areas that we're going to go back and we're going to keep working on until we let it out of our tight little greasy hands.
Okay.
But at some point we're going to call it and say, you know, it'll never be perfect. But I'm not going to push that date, and I'm not going to push that happening. We just want to get it done right. That's the key. And you all have certainly done yeoman's work this summer. I mean, the hours that have been spent on this collectively by members of this group and the staff and the consultants is it's pretty big. It's pretty monumental. So we'll give you 2 weeks off. You got Labor Day holiday in there. You get 2 weeks off. All right. Anything else before we go forward? I knew nobody was going to be able to read through all of the minutes that came in today, and I understand that. I haven't either. And I hope that we can move through what we need to move through tonight, and also understand that the economic development section is being worked on heavily with staff and the chamber. I will tell you, we've offered the chamber the opportunity to have a public forum with members of the chamber only. And as yet, they have not taken that bait. So that offer has been made. All right. Brian, you want to lead us on through infrastructure? Are you there, Brian? Brian Teeple.
I had muted myself, ma'am. I sneezed and I didn't want anyone to hear it.
Better put a mask on.
Don't infect that computer of yours. It doesn't need a virus.
No, ma'am. It's
Exactly.
Allergies have been hanging on this summer for me for some odd reason. So
yeah, I think you're not alone.
Yeah, I'm afraid not. Okay. Infrastructure. We have. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought somebody had something to.
Where are we in this packet? There was. I'm looking at it on a.
We're in section D. Exhibit D.
Section D.
Yes, sir. Infrastructure element.
It's almost halfway. A little bit past halfway.
Yep. Where we finished last time was, I lost my place when I got my papers in order. We were down, I know we had gotten through D10.
Now, was that emailed to us yesterday or this morning?
No, sir. That was emailed to us prior to the meeting 2 weeks ago.
Email.
2 weeks ago.
Okay, so I need to go to another email.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I think we had gotten down through D10 on the changes. Yes.
D10.
Aaron?
I thought that we got all the way through capital improvements and we just didn't do the economic development part.
What does everybody else remember? I don't remember.
I'm looking back at the minutes for July the 22nd.
It says we did?
And we went through infrastructure, intergovernmental coordination, capital improvements. We just did not do economic development.
All right.
Yeah, that was
Thank you.
Yeah,
Do
that's what I,
y'all have a date that email was that y'all are referring to?
Yeah, where is that?
I can
The
tell
actual
you.
date.
It would have been
I can
prior
tell
to October, prior to August 10th. Let me look. It's good to have multiple devices when you're doing this.
It was 8/7. It was August 7th.
8/7.
Yeah.
That helps immensely.
Yeah.
What page you want us to be on, Aaron?
We want to start with Exhibit II, Economic Development.
That's after conservation.
Should be the very last one in the packet.
Well, we've already gotten emails from Mr. Kramer.
Sorry.
Okay. Then who wants to lead us through economic development of the three of you, staff and consultant?
Madam Chair, I'm happy to do it. And I think I may have mentioned this at a previous meeting. We reviewed the economic development element and found it to do a couple of things. Number one, I think it provides a good framework for the county to undertake economic development activities. It talks in generic terms about, without being specific, which I think is what the commission wanted last time this was done, about an economic development representative that the county would essentially contract with or fund, and gave them a variety of tasks, all of which I think remain valid today. The one thing, the only change that I think I recommended at that point in time, and again, you've now been working with Brian Bergen at the Chamber. As I mentioned to you last night, I touched base with Brian early on in the process, is really a change to the, on the last page in policy I.3.4.1, and the economic development marketing plan should be updated every 5 years, reviewed annually and updated every 5 years, and just wrote that out to make it explicit as opposed to referring back to a policy that occurs earlier on in this particular element. So if the Chamber is desiring changes to the policies, we'll coordinate, and I'll coordinate with staff with regard to what those should be and what they need to be. I think I see another change. It was simply changing the name from St. John's. No, I didn't make the change. Changing the name of St. John's River Community College to St. John's River State College. I just see one that I missed.
Well, those are things, some of those things we're going to catch on that final read through.
Yep.
So that's okay.
And I don't know, Mike, if you got anything to add about this. I mean, you and I talked about this earlier on, and again, things may be getting attention at the Chamber, and so that we may be considering other things.
Yeah. I have nothing else to add to what Brian has said. I mean, it's drafted so that it's, the county gets to decide who that economic development representative is. It's not specific in that.
Right. And I think we should say the county may choose to contract with an outside agent for economic development, not binding them to doing that. Does that make sense?
In objective 1I 1.1, the county commission shall designate without presupposing changes that might occur or might not occur into the future. We can certainly put may in there. They could always designate themselves.
I think may is better because
Yes, ma'am.
we don't want to bind them to have to go out. Anybody have a problem with that?
Where did you jump to?
They're back on page 1.
Page 1.
Page 1 of economic development, which is the last
Right.
element. Yeah, okay. I finally found it.
We'll move again for you real quick, I'm sure.
That's cool. I'm just trying to track right now.
You want to do 1.1, just change shall to may.
Yes.
And given that general direction, Madam Chair, I think there's a number of other changes in this element that following that lead that I'll go ahead and make some additional changes now that they have that direction, because it kind of permeates down through the goals, objectives.
It does. Yes, it does.
So I can make those changes. That's not a problem.
Okay.
Do we have a representative now, Mike?
It's
Yes.
basically the chamber.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah. I went to the chamber on some, and I think you and I may have had this conversation some time ago. And I was not pleased with what the chamber did. They were discouraging a development from coming in. So I don't know.
Yeah.
You guys work with them probably a little more than I do, but I mean, I work with them when I have to.
Yeah. Well, again, the element doesn't specifically call out the chamber. It's just
Right.
So far that's who the board has decided was going to be that economic development representative / agency. They've decided so far it's the chamber, and they may want to change that. And I think there's flexibility in this element that would allow that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, one of the reasons why we've been using the chamber is we give them so much money. And this is a justification for some of the money that we give them, I believe.
Wouldn't disagree with that perception.
We can disagree?
No, I said I wouldn't necessarily disagree with that observation.
Yeah, I mean, I've had that observation with those 5 guys that sit in those chairs when we sit there when they're meeting and not us.
Okay. Anything else, Brian, that you have that you'd like to bring forth and tell us about?
Nothing on economic development, no.
Okay. When do you think you will have a clean markup version for us of the text?
For all elements, or are we talking about this particular one?
All elements.
I can have it at any point in time. I think there are still a number of outstanding issues that need to be decided. For example, Mr. Kramer, his comments that have come in. Mike, we still have, I think, some work to do in the rural residential. Is that correct?
Right. Yeah.
So, I mean, that's something that I want to have as much of it done as I can by September the 9th. So you're dealing with, there's still going to be issues out there that will be outstanding. As an example, I still need some, we're still waiting on for some infrastructure information from Public Works.
Right.
I talked to the new Public Works director earlier or very late last week, and he's getting me some additional information. I have finally received information from the right solution, so I can finish up
Good.
that part of the data and analysis and swing back in to look at the goals, objectives, and policies as it might relate to transit issues. So there's still a couple of those things, and again, I received that very late last week as well.
Well, you're at the mercy of others too, and we understand that.
Well, we're all mercy of each other.
You want to go ahead and talk about the things that Mr. Kramer has brought up. Those are in materials that everyone received today. And it's from the July 30th meeting, which was one of the sections that was sent out. And there was an email also from Mr. Kramer that came into us prior to the July 12th meeting, I believe. But let's look at the ones from July 30th because we haven't gone over these with the commission yet. These are this is from the meeting that Mr. Kramer initiated that was attended by a number of the larger landholders in Putnam County, not necessarily Putnam County residents, by the way. One of the members who attended was a county commissioner in St. Johns County. But some of the things that were brought up are things that we've already discussed and things that have already been seen. So he specifically zeroes in on North Putnam. And I think if you remember his comments last meeting, we talked about the fact that we're not just looking at one individual area of the county, we're looking at the county as a whole. So we understand.
He owns a lot of, he represents a lot of people or a lot of land in the north section, doesn't he?
I believe so. He lists his affiliation as Kramer Wood Procurement Incorporated.
Mm-hmm. They own.
It's family business.
Somebody's breaking up really bad. Joel, I think it's you. Joel, repeat that,
sorry,
please.
I said they own about 3,000 acres right directly across the street from me.
Okay. And he is a land development attorney in Hillsborough County. He's working more with his family who still live here, I understand, but that's where his interest is coming from. So on that July 30th meeting, preserve the densities of ag lands to help land values up, to keep land values up for ag loans. That's pretty much the opposite of what we've heard from all the other land interest, is to increase, they want to increase the densities so that their land value will be higher for loan purposes.
Madam Chair, if I may, I think that is in line with what we heard from South Florida. The South Putnam County when we had that workshop.
To keep the densities
the desire
the same?
is to either maintain or increase the.
He's wanting to
increase.
Yeah, did not want to decrease.
Right.
But
the South Putnam group very definitely discussed increasing the densities.
Right. And that was the take from the meeting we had on the 30th also. We heard basically the same thing. It was, either maintain them or increase them. The preference would be to increase if possible, but didn't want to decrease. They were supportive of going to a single agricultural future land use.
Okay.
And also tied into that was, they recognized and saw that at least they did raise a bit of a concern with losing the ability to increase densities with getting rid of the point score policy.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But they recognize that, if with an increase in densities, that's somewhat offset, but they still would prefer maybe to have some ability to still increase the densities in those in the ag future land use, whatever.
Well, I think we've said up to 1 one dwelling in 20 acres. So that's pretty high density.
Well, I mean, the draft,
Not
what you have in the draft.
That's low density.
Yeah.
Low density.
Low density.
And if you remember when we talked about this, I wanted to increase the density, and I thought we did.
Yeah, I thought it's 20 residences within 1 acre. That's high density.
No,
This is
it's one dwelling unit per, what's in the draft that was provided to you of the future land use. It says there's one ag future land use, a base density of 1 unit per 10 acres. That's what the draft indicates.
Currently.
That was sent out a couple weeks ago.
So we dropped down from 1 in 20 to 1 in 10, and we kept it 1 in 10 in the other.
Right.
Because
Well,
ag
we only
one was
have
1 in
one.
10.
We only have one. It's one
Right.
in 10.
And I was pushing for more density than that, because if you,
I think so too. I think we talked about 1 in 5.
I think we talked about 1 and 2.5, because that's
Well,
that's what I
talking
said.
For all your ag lands, you've got over 400,000 acres of that in the county.
That's correct. If you got, let's say,
You've got some serious
somebody
infrastructure
owns-
issues.
yeah, but somebody
Absolutely. And that's where our language comes in on infrastructure. If there are more than X number of dwellings, they need to have some sort of a centralized water and sewer system.
Well, in the ag zoning concept, not future land, but ag zoning,
We're not in zoning.
I understand that, but we have 1 per acre. Okay. So if we have 1 per acre under the zoning concept, your future land use, you want to make more than that. That sort of defeats the 1 per acre.
That's a conflict we have to look at when we get to the land use code or land development code, isn't it, Mike?
No, it's got to start here in your future land use. That's your
zoning
trump card.
district. That's a zoning district versus a future land use designation. I, from a staff standpoint, I've got some real concerns with going that dense for over 400,000 acres in the county.
Well, I'm not saying
why is that, Mike? Why do you have concerns about that? What is the reason?
Well, first off, it will be the infrastructure costs that would be associated with that. Then getting at what I've heard from what we've heard, the county heard through its efforts for the visioning process. What we heard was there's a strong desire to maintain the rural and ag nature of the county. I don't think and then from my standpoint, you can't do that at 2.5 acres.
I don't think 2.5 is viable. I think 1 per 5 is viable.
You're not going to have people developing 40,000 acres into 2.5 acre pieces. That's not what's going to happen. But if you got a future land use on a property that's 10 acres, and I've got, let's say I want to cut it up into 4 pieces. At 4 pieces, that tricks into subdivision already.
Yep.
So
well, that wouldn't. If we do 1 in 5, that wouldn't work. What does everybody else on the commission feel, Jerry?
Well, I'm for making things where it could be affordable for other folks that may want to live out in rural areas to be able to get there. And I don't know if that's a 5 acre or a 2.5 acre or what, but I know the more acreage that's required, the fewer opportunities there are going to be for folks to move there. And we heard that in one of our workshops, in one of our forum. It was 1 in 20, and that's prohibitive for some people to buy a 20-acre lot to build a home. You can't do that.
And we've also, we talked a little bit about it in the last meeting about the fact that, there's some prognosticators out there who are saying that with COVID, there's going to be a migration out from the urban areas and into the rural areas.
Now you sound like you are.
And ooh.
That's not a compliment either now.
No, but that's,
I don't
mean,
think she took it that way.
that's the reality. Believe me,
I think that was his quote, if I'm not mistaken.
I was here last Thursday night when he signed on. Yeah. And I appreciated the things he had to say. I want everybody to feel like they can say what they want to. But I mean, that's a possibility. And we're possibly also going to see some migration with sea level rise. And I think what's about to happen over in Southwest Louisiana and Northwest Texas is going to put the fear of God in some people who are living on the coast. So we're going to see some migration in from the coastal areas. But at the same time, going down to 1 in 5 seems viable to me.
All right, here's what you look at. Mike's argument is he don't want 2.5 acre pieces. But if the developer's got, anything over 10 acres, you have to go through the subdivision ordinance. That's going to take care of itself for you. I mean, you're going to have everything taken care of. They got to do a subdivision. So, but if you got pieces where you can just do, if the man's got 1,000 acres, they're not going to do 2.5. I don't believe you're going to do it in any time in the near future. But
if they've got water and sewer available, they're looking for 7 units per acre. If there's water and sewer, that's what they're looking for. But
is that centralized water and sewer, or is that public funded water and sewer?
It's just water and sewer availability. Okay. I'm not sure
how provides it. Okay.
Yeah.
The other thing that happens when we are counter to some of the efforts that the county has made to try to focus development into where they've already put money into facilities and infrastructure.
Right.
You don't make it less desirable to go to those areas if you're allowed to start subdividing throughout the county.
Well, if you subdivide into 2.5 acre tracts and subdividing into a 1/4 acre tract is not even remotely the same.
No, it's not.
We're not. You're not even playing the same sport.
No,
I don't think we're talking subdivision here
2.5 acres
with the agriculture.
Well, you are if you're talking about your argument to not do what I'm suggesting is that it's going to have to be a subdivision because you can only do 4 pieces, 2.5. As soon as you subdivide into 4 lots, you're in the subdivision. And that's not what's going to happen, but you're going to need people. A lot of people are going to they can afford 2.5 acres. If there's a 5 acre tract somebody's got, they can cut it in half and they can put 2 houses on it. That's not going to hurt your density. I don't believe anytime in the near future. Now I'm pretty old, but I can guarantee you I'm not going to see 1,000 acre subdivision in 2.5 acre pieces in Putnam County, Florida.
No, there's not going to do that.
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
No, they're not going to do that.
Brian, excuse me. Brian, would you like to speak?
Yeah, the conversation is a good one. If you have an area that in agricultural that does desire and is capable of bringing water and sewer online, comprehensive plan is not locked in stone. So
exactly.
You guys see comp plan amendments and rezonings all the time. And so in that case, you're then dealing with a set of facts that does provide for the opportunity to support that higher density.
We also have a PUD.
Right. And I'm with Mike from the perspective, the preamble to your agriculture and what we heard the agricultural interest saying is that we really want to preserve our way of life. We want higher densities available so we have a better chance to sell off a piece of land if time gets bad, or to provide for a higher equity in the land from the perspective of loan. So I think 2.5 acres eliminates the concept of agricultural being
rural
a
nature, yeah.
viable, ongoing, long-term prospect in Putnam County. I think that's something we've already suggested to you to take it down to all of it, 1 unit per 10 acres. And if those other factors become available and it'll be happening in limited areas, you can then go through and apply for and change the land use. Otherwise,
I want to remind everybody that, go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Brian.
Just one other thing. Otherwise, you're going to have an opportunity where in very rural conditions, very rural roads, you start to have then, and even if it goes through subdivision, they don't require water and sewer at 2.5 units per acre. So you're going to put a lot of trips on substandard roads that you can't even grade today once a year, hardly, based upon your budget. So
I live on one.
You know, that kind of density across great swaths of Putnam County is not something as a professional planner that I could recommend.
But that's
right. I want to go ahead.
From my standpoint, what I'd like to see in Putnam County is I would like to see people be able to divide their property. But if they divide their property, they have to pave the roads and put ditches, and they need to do it for, you know, if they're taking 10 acres and they're putting 4 lots, they still have to pave that road. And if that doesn't allow for that by doing it in 2 acres and they have to do a PUD is the only way you're going to get the pave, then make them do a PUD.
Yeah. I want to remind everybody, I mean, we're talking about the things that came out of the meeting that Mike and Brian had with Mr. Kramer and a few other people. I want to remind everybody what came out of the meeting with the South Putnam Ag Interest. 1 in 5, higher density of 1 in 5 makes it work. The loan value goes up for farm credit if you have a higher density. 1 in 5 works for us because the limited density hurts the property value. Densities prohibited the sale of property. You're someone who had to buy a 20-acre lot to build a house. Ag is changing in the future, and we're going to see changes in the whole complexion of the county in the future. Nobody wants to develop undevelopable land, which I think was a very wise statement that was made. Don't destroy land, cluster land use for residential. And then we had talking about, that was about all we had on ag. But primarily, and you don't have those notes, and I apologize, I haven't typed them up. I gave them to you orally, and they're in the minutes of some meeting. But you're hearing 1 in 10 and keep it high in the low in the north, and South Putnam is hearing 1 in 5.
No, this guy from up north wants the low number if you read what he wrote.
Preserve the densities for ag lands to keep land values up.
Read his last paragraph.
1 in 10 at a minimum. I agree with 1 in 5. How does everybody else feel?
I do too.
And strongly recommend a mechanism to 1 in 5.
What do you think, Jerry? How do you feel?
Well, the way I'm looking at this thing is human nature is going to make it to where folks that want to live out in a rural area can get what they can afford. You know, if you make it 1 in 5, there should be some way, and I don't know if it's going back through the process of changing a bunch of things, but there should be some way for them to buy a 2.5 acre tract if they want to. I like 5 acres. Frankly, if I were going to move out in the country again, I mean, I've got 2.5 here where I am, but I would go out, I'd want to buy as much acreage as I possibly could. It would all depend on what I could afford.
Right.
And I think we need to consider the folks who can't afford to go out and buy 5 or 10 acres of land at whatever value might be now. You know, if it's $5,000 an acre, there are a lot of people that have $25,000 in their pocket to go buy that land. So that's where I'm coming from. I'd like to try to keep it to where folks who want to live in rural areas can do so without destroying the area. And I'm not sure what the solution is, but that's that's my perspective. I like to see folks be able to live in the kind of environment they want to live in. And if it takes to 1 in 5, then we can go with that. And if they need to alter that somewhere down the line, then go through whatever process it is to try to get that particular acreage changed.
How can you, Mike, how can you reduce the 1 in 5 to 1 to 2.5 if you set this thing at 1 in 5? What mechanism?
I mean, if we tied into some increased density tied with various items that are included. I mean, like if you said, you know, you provided paved roads, you could go up to you can increase a unit per acre or something.
But that would be clustering, Mike. That wouldn't be a single site.
But
If somebody wanted to go out and buy 2.5 acres across the street from Joel
And live there.
and live there,
With his horse and 5 chickens.
There you go.
he wouldn't have to put in a paved road because he lives on a paved road.
Well, even if he lived on a dirt road, it wouldn't. I mean, you got to understand, we don't have paved roads. We only have dirt roads once you get out. As soon as you leave Palatka.
And it costs, and it's one of the biggest draws in the county's budget every year is trying to maintain those.
And it's one of the
Going to
biggest
2.5, you're going to increase that.
One person at a time, please. I think I heard Joel.
It's one of the biggest reasons people don't want to move here, because they don't want to move on a paved road. They want to go somewhere where they don't go down a paved road. And to promote growth, you need to have paved roads. And that's a good idea to tie it to a mechanism where they have to pave the road to do 2.5 acres.
Can I speak?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay.
I feel like we're getting confused on some different things here, because I think this is where the map is going to come into play. I think it would be kind of crazy to put 1 unit for 2.5 acres over all ag future land use. I mean, some of it is going to be in the rural residential or, you know, those other categories that already increases that density. I think just a blanket put it over all of it would be kind of crazy, in my opinion.
Well, we're talking about, you know, each of the different land use categories.
Right.
Has
I
some
know
density.
that we were looking at rural residential is 2.5, 1 for 2.5, I think. And I think this is where the map review is going to come into a big play, as far as, you know, all the land along a lot of the highways is still zoned, you know, the main highways is still zoned ag future land use, but I'm sure we're going to amend
We're looking
that
at urban reserve and urban service, yeah.
And like Brian said, this stuff is not set in stone, that if someone has a legitimate subdivision, they want to divide 500 acres into 1 acre, you know, put 500 homes or less than that, or and they're still in an ag future land use, then we can look at it based on what they present to us. But that's my opinion.
Thank you for your opinion.
I know there's still, I mean, I live next to Hastings. I know there's still areas in St. Johns County that you can have 1 unit, 1 house on 40 acres, and that is ridiculous. But I think to move from 1 to 20 for some areas down to 1 to 2.5 would be a little crazy. So,
how do you feel about 1 to 5?
Well, what if you change the future land use, get rid of some of the ag and go to the rural residential?
Right, that's what we're talking about doing.
That's
but
the
we
mapping
haven't gotten there yet on the map reviews.
Well, we have
Well-
to look at how the land is currently being used as well, because a lot of that ag land is being used as ag. Aaron, what do you feel about one dwelling per 5 acres in ag?
I think probably I could get on board with that. With just, I would want to look at other counties a little more and see and get Brian's professional opinion as a planner if that would be something.
And Mike, yeah,
right. So I feel like because we're still going to have plenty of areas where we can have more density, but to go out in the middle of, nowhere and plop in, a subdivision that, I mean, you got to have a developer that wants to do it, and a developer wants to do it, they can come to us at that time and say, well, yeah. I mean, there will be, I feel like there's going to be plenty of areas for development with our map amendment that are, are planning on the maps. So,
well, I think we need to honor somehow honor the request to give the ag owners better land value for borrowing purposes.
I agree. I'm a farm family. My whole family is farmers, so I'm, well aware of how all that works. But,
Tom, what are your thoughts on this?
I think from what we're all hearing is the landowners have suggested to keep it about 1 to 10 or 1 to 20.
They're saying 1 to 5.
Well, I think that's a little low because I'm agreeing with what Mike had told us. We have to look at the infrastructure of the county. If all of a sudden you have somebody putting one unit on 5 acres over here and 5 acres over there, we don't have the roads, we don't have the police, we don't have the fire, we don't have any support from the county infrastructure for these people. And once you start a ball rolling on land which is zoned agricultural, if we get it down to a point where it is 1 per 5 or 1 per 2.5, it's going to start selling. You're going to need the roadways. You're going to need everything to support it. So I would keep it as high as we can because there's other ways of getting the density reduced going through the county with PUDs and other ways. But I would not want to dump from 1 to 20 down to 1 to 2.5 or 5.
Your ag interest people aren't interested in a PUD. I got news for you. The only person that's going to be in.
I've been around a lot of developers down in South Florida and watch just what we're talking about here get out of hand. You go 1 to 2.5 acres. All right. I said what I had to say. I would not be against it.
Okay. Thank you, Tom.
Susan.
Joey.
Yes. Northwest Volusia County, most of their ag is 1 in 10, which makes it viable to put cows on so they can keep their taxes down so they can build that house and they have cows and make a viable ag land. If you go 1 to 5, then you have to, the problem is our South Putnam guys, and I had a piece and I sold mine went to ag. But the problem, like the ones that talked the other night, they got one chunk of area is 100, 200 acres. And you start dividing that up in 2.5, you got to start putting roads in there.
Yeah, I don't agree with 2.5 at all.
No.
Well, let me just
Volusia County, if you find a piece of property when it comes up for sale and it's averaging about 8,000 an acre, it ain't on for very long. Somebody will buy it up. It's not a problem. But then you put your viable cows on, which I did, and I got some fern. I got 15 acres in Seville, and that's what I got. I got 3 acres of fern, and I got the rest of it some cows. And I have a barn and everything, and I'm zoned ag. They checked everything out, and if I want to build a house, I can build a house. And I have my own private road, which I'm going to eventually put millings down instead of the dirt part. But I'll eventually put millings down. I have to do that myself. But it comes off a hard road.
I need to borrow your cows. I got
some, but I'm ready to sell some. I'm ready to sell some. I need to make some money for the year so I can make it look viable that I am got a bunch of calves, which I do. So I'm about ready to sell. So that's how it does in Northwest Volusia County, and it's not a problem for people to put up $80,000, $90,000 to buy a piece of land just like that. It just goes real quick.
That's the difference between Putnam and Volusia.
Okay.
Well, I was on the southern end of Volusia. I was on the Volusia County line with my piece, and that's when we did a PUD for Walmart. That's how that ended up. Also, Skinner's Nursery was doing a PUD for some other stuff that we won't go into that. It wasn't done correctly, but they had a PUD and it wasn't. I don't know. Mike had to tell you all about that. That's a whole.
We don't want to go down that rabbit trail.
No, we don't want to go down that road. But anyway, the big ag guys will do a PUD if they have to, because the developer will come in and help them do it. That's all it is. If they want that land, that developer wants that land, they'll come get it.
That's correct. The developer will do that.
Yes.
What I'm talking about though is the plain old Joe that wants to go out there with his horse and 5 chickens.
Right.
But
okay.
If nobody except I only got one person that likes 2.5 from what I've been counting up, but everybody seems like they could buy your 1 in 5.
Well, let's go down the list. Tom, what's the lowest density you'd be willing to go to?
I would stay 1 in 10.
Okay. Joel.
1 in 10.
Joey.
I'll do 1 in 10.
There you go.
Boy, I didn't hear very
Jerry.
good when I was doing my counting.
Jerry.
I do 1 in 5 with some avenue, whatever you have to go through to get it less than that.
Okay. Ken?
1 in 5 minimum.
I'm the lowest you want to go. It don't make any difference to me. Whatever the lowest is, that's what I'd go for.
Would you go for 1 in 5?
I'd settle for 1 in 5 if I have to.
All right.
I believe you need 1 in 2.5.
I'm gonna say 1 in 10 unless I could, look at some more data that supports lower.
And I would go with 1 in 5. So we've got 4 people that like 1 in 10 and 3 of us who like 1 in 5. So we're leaning toward the 1 in 10.
That's where I counted it too.
Well,
I was
really
1 in 5 and 1 in 2.5, so there's 2 votes.
What I really hate is defying what was recommended by all of the ag interest. And they recommended 1 in 5.
Madam Chair, we could invigorate the density point score process or concept just within the ag future land use. There may be some opportunities to be able to start it as a base of 1 to 10, and then in certain circumstances be able to move up to perhaps 1 to 5.
All right, let me pose a compromise solution and tell me if this is viable, Mike. For land that abuts a hard road, to use a South Florida term or South Putnam term, a paved road, let it go as low as 1 in 5. But any land that does not, ag land that does not abut a paved road would be a density of 1 in 10. Is that viable?
When you say viable, anything's viable that we,
Would that work?
The board,
Mike and Brian, would that work?
I would not only say abut, I would say access a hard or a paved road.
Directly access?
Yeah, because if
okay.
I have a
parcel that has direct access to a paved road is allowable at 1 in 5. A parcel that has no direct access to a paved road, 1 in 10.
Yeah.
Would you do this just as a matter, and I'm just thinking downward thinking, would you do this as a matter, and I'll ask Mike as well, is this a matter of a policy within a single ag zone, or are we talking about two ag districts, going back to 2 ag districts?
I would
one
think
ag
one
district,
ag zone
single
with,
policy.
one ag category with a criteria and built into the policy.
Yeah, that was the answer I was fishing for.
That's my answer.
If nothing else, only because mapping it as two land uses using that criteria.
Oh no! Oh no! 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 No!
I just don't.
So let's go back through the group. Tom, how do you feel about having it with the variable of if it has direct access to a paved road, be 1 in 5. If it doesn't, be 1 in 10.
Well, if it can be put that way in a plan, fine. Otherwise, I would say 1 in 10 and let it be an administrative thing that has to come through the planning.
It's better to have it locked into policy.
Well, then I would say 1 in 10.
You'd still stick with 1 in 10 and not have a variable.
Yep.
Okay. How about it, Joel? How do you feel about having a variable?
I could agree with the variable.
Okay.
Since we don't have paved roads, it won't make any difference.
Well, that's
I
true.
can agree with it.
Joey?
I agree with the variable.
Okay. Jerry?
Can I ask Mike one question before I give you an answer? What
Of
other
course.
zoning do we have that allows the 2.5 acre size
But
lots for people?
the future land use, we redrafted the rural residential future land use, and I know we haven't gone over that, but that future land use as drafted starts at a density of 1 unit per 2.5 acres.
Okay.
And then there are opportunities based on, the provision of central water and sewer, et cetera, to be able to get a higher density in that category. So that is,
Well, if we can
there's
open
an
more
opportunity
areas,
there.
yeah. If we can somehow have more areas with that available, I would go along with the 5, the variable 5 on the paved road and 10 off.
I think with at least the changes in the map that Brian and I have discussed, I think you'll see a lot of areas with significant increased densities.
Along the corridors.
Along 207, where we're going to put water and sewer, staff is going to recommend to you expanding the urban service, future land use up 207 and down 17, because there's water and sewer there available. And if the density that we've discussed going to 24, a maximum of 24 units per acre.
Right, in urban service.
You'd be increasing the densities significantly in those areas. Some of
A lot
that
of that is ag
some
now.
of that is ag future land use, some of it's rural residential future land use today. So I think Aaron brought it up. It's a nice discussion to have, but it almost, you need to have this with at least a draft of what the map might look like.
Right. And we will see that map next meeting.
Yeah, I'd rather put off giving you a number till we see. I'd be all for if we take some of the ag and put it in rural residential.
I would too. I think that's
that would be my compromise.
Well, rural residential or urban service or urban reserve. But let's look at this ag piece right now. Let's keep focused on that. Ken, could you live with that? Well, Jerry. Let's stick with Jerry first. Could you live with the variable for agriculture?
Right now, I will go with the on the paved road, the 5 acre, and off the paved, the 10 acre.
Okay. Ken, can you live with that?
I live with that if we can change, and Mike seems to think that we're going to be changing a bunch of ag to the 2.5 by changing the future land use.
There you go.
We're going to be looking at moving some of the ag into urban service and urban reserve. We always have the option of moving ag into rural residential with a change to the future land use map brought before us as a standard case. So that always is there.
But now's the time to do it, not a future case. We need to do it now and get it done.
We need to have some standards that are pretty clean. Aaron, what do you think?
I'm looking at Jake's email, and he's concerned with people being down zoned or down, what do they call it? Down planned. So what is the mechanism now on Ag 1, Ag 2 to get to 5 units per acre? What is required?
You could only do that in the Ag 1 future land use.
Okay.
With the existing density point score policy, if you get enough points, you can
Paved
get down
road.
to paved roads. There's 11
Access
criteria.
to schools, access to public service.
Proximity to schools, proximity to jobs, affordable housing units, you can get points, the types of soils.
Right. I know what all the things are.
Yeah.
I
It
just
makes
wondered
things too difficult.
what
Now,
mechanism.
I will tell you, there's a number of existing Ag 1 future land use today where you could never get enough points to move up even to one unit per 9 acres. You're stuck
Right.
at 1 unit per 10.
Right.
Just not the ability based on the location to get enough points to increase the density.
And we're not looking at having 1 per 9 or 1 per 5 anywhere that doesn't have direct access to a paved road.
Right.
I could probably get on board with that, except that direct access exception or catalyst to getting to 1 per 5. But I think if they're going to do that, they would probably want to change the future land use to something other than ag and get a little more density if they've got all that already.
Right.
So.
That's with a developer. I mean, with a developer, I'm not worried about it because they're going to come in and change everything.
There you go.
Well, you might also have somebody who wants to buy 2.5 acres from an ag owner and have it reclassified as rural residential. It might be spot use. It might not meet our criteria. It might not get passed. But that's one of the things that we have to look at. We don't automatically pass everything that comes before us. So, okay. Is item number 2 talks about things in North Putnam in Highway 17, North 17. Jerry, you and I have been hearing this for years about the growth that's coming down US 17 from Clay County. And I think we have to look, my thinking is, and I've expressed this before, we look at the county as a whole, not just one individual quadrant or one individual piece. Thoughts on that?
The only thought I would have is that you kind of look at East Palaca in a different way and not consider the whole county as a whole. Am I correct in that?
We're looking at East Palaca because of the water and sewer availability. And that's the key difference.
Okay.
I mean,
anything else on that?
And I'd asked Mike the other day about if somebody wanted to come to North Putnam and put water and sewer other than the county, would the county agree to the certificated area? Did you find that out, Mike?
No, I apologize. I did not get an answer for that yet. I believe you can, but with a new public works director, I don't want to answer for him and whether he would be against it.
Mike or Brian, would you speak to number 3 in the transferable development rights?
Go ahead, Brian, you can start.
Well, first of all, what you currently have is an opportunity in the gunning and bombing range area, the overlay down in South Putnam there, that makes it available for some people to transfer some density. I will tell you.
Please explain what that means.
Well, you can set it up in a myriad of ways, but it essentially says that I own a piece of land and I can have 4 dwelling units per acre on it. I'm making up numbers. And if I want to continue to use it as ag or something along those lines, that I can sell to certain designated areas or give, if you're so magnanimous, 3 units of that to somebody else in designated areas where the local government desires higher densities. And it hasn't worked well in Florida in particular. The best place I've ever seen it work is in Montgomery County, Maryland, in the west part of Montgomery County, where there was a lot of ag land and there was a lot of development pressure in Rockville and Bethesda. That worked reasonably well, but you got to have a market for it. And there's really going to be no market anytime soon in Putnam County. So I'm not exactly sure how to approach this in making something that is reasonable and actually operational. And Mike, you may have a different concept. We haven't talked about this a whole lot just because I've never seen it work well.
Without a major demand, it's for a receiving area, it doesn't work well. It makes it real difficult because there's no market to sell it. And then what becomes real problematic is the tracking and who watches it and tracks it. That can be a major burden on staff. Not pointing out planning staff. I don't know who at the county would be the entity that would be tracking that.
The custodian of that data.
Yeah, you'd almost have to set up a market. You'd almost have to be a Wall Street. I don't mean that literally, but there's got to be a place, virtual real, for these trades to take place and that they can be tracked.
I'm curious about something here, and goes back to some of my previous thoughts. He's saying that he has taken a crack at drafting a policy for the future land use element. Have we received draft language from Mr. Kramer?
It's in the email that I indicated that I received Monday, and I apologize, I didn't.
But we've not put any of his draft language in any of our work yet, have we?
No.
Thank you.
No.
Thank you.
No.
Anybody else on the commission feel strongly that we need to do anything with transferable land rights, development rights at this point? Joel, what are your thoughts?
I don't see any reason for it until you have a need for it.
We can always amend the comprehensive plan.
If I'm tracking.
Yeah.
Anybody else feel like we need to put this in? We can just leave it out. Jerry, you're shaking your head.
I don't feel like we need it now either.
Okay. Tom, Jerry?
Leave it as it is now.
Tom, Joey? Tom?
No, we don't need it. We don't need it right now.
Okay. All right. Mike, you want to speak to this question about the best management practices that he's talking about?
Yeah, I mean, the policies, there are policies in the plan presently that basically mandate best management practices for many of the agriculture areas. And that group had some concerns with just the mandatory. They often follow them, but they just had concerns with the mandatory, the forced following of best management practices to meet what's in the comp plan today.
Who enforces that?
Good question. It's not, to be honest, we don't enforce that at the staff level.
I wonder if that's something that's enforced through.
It's the water management district.
A lot of them are either DEP and the water management district does enforce a lot of them.
Well, we're honoring their mandates.
If you don't honor their mandates, then you don't get a consumptive use permit from the St. John's Water Management District.
Yeah, they'll honor them for you. They'll fix you right up.
Okay.
Hey, I've been through their inspections. Believe me, I've done it all.
You don't want to play that game again, Joey?
Actually, the first BMPs, it was really scary, but it wasn't that bad. They come to my farm and they wanted you to sign up. And then if you didn't sign up, they want to have you test your wells and water, and you'll have to do more crazy things than what they did. And they did a pre-run on my farm, and I was 99% compliant the first time, which I didn't think I was even about 50% compliant. But when you're farming, especially the fertilizer deal, is years ago, yes, the Hastings farmers, I've done it. When it rains, you put the extra fertilizer out, because when the plant grows, you can't stop growing. It's got to keep growing. Once it stops, you're in trouble. But now fertilizer is so expensive, you can't do extra stuff. Their plan is right there, which allows you, if there is a heavy rain, it allows you to add a little extra fertilizer to your program. But they check. It's not that bad. They just come down and make sure your drainage is correct, and it's not as bad as people think it is. And it needs to be, to make everything now for food safety. And that's what it ended up being more. And when food safety showed up, the BMPs already did a lot of that on a farm. And now they do the other thing for the grading, and there's some other stuff now. But a lot of that, when they first started the food safety, the BMPs already took care of a lot of it. But now they made it really tougher. But
Okay.
the BMPs are there from DEP or FDACS and IFAS and Water Management District. They all work together. They come up with a plan, and most of the farmers were involved coming up with the BMP plan to make it so everybody could pretty well abide by the rules, where one wouldn't be so far out of bounds and the other one was in compliance.
Okay.
So everybody today is pretty well in compliance for what they got to do.
Okay. Anybody else have a comment on the BMPs? Everybody comfortable with leaving them as we have them?
Yes.
Do I hear anybody uncomfortable leaving them as we have them?
I agree with whatever staff agrees to on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think staff knows best on that one. I think you've got comments from everyone else. We've really tried to follow up with people who have had comments and haven't been able to complete them. We followed up on things like we had. I got a note during the Zoom meeting last 2 weeks ago, that from Mr. Kramer, that he had been working with Brian Bergen at the Chamber and Brian Teeple, he said, on economic development, and he wanted to let us know that he was working on that for us. We followed up with Brian Bergen, and we followed up with, Mike has followed up with him as I have, and so has Brian Teeple. So I think we're covering that. I followed up with Lisa Kane DeVito. Most of her stuff was dealing with Crescent City and not really dealing with the comp plan. One of her questions was totally Water Management District. And when I finish the conversation with her, I'll go over that with her. We have had we've had our forums advertised with City Commission of Crescent City. It's been in the paper. It's been advertised as a display ad. We've had feature articles. It's just hard to get people to take the time out to come in and talk and come in to give us their thoughts and opinions. So how do you all feel about where we are with public input?
You get about as much public input as the public wants to give you, which is practically none.
Yeah. I find it kind of disappointing, frankly, that more folks out there don't want to have some input, but what are you going to do?
If you look at some of the responses from some of the people, the Zoom and things like that, it just isn't really an option to them. And I don't know that you'd get any more. Some people just like to complain no matter what happens. Yeah. But it is a real hindrance to do something like this and not be able to have face to face. I'll admit that. I mean, it's hard on us. Absolutely. I can just imagine what it is to the public, and it's just a shame that this China virus has hit us when it did in this process.
Yep. It's taken a lot of steam out of the process. You know, people can call in and interact with us via phone, and they just haven't done that. So I think it's a little bit daunting. It's technology, and it's rough to use.
Madam Chair, two observations very quickly. Number one, I've done this for a very long time. The amount of public participation that you've received is not terribly uncommon for a comprehensive plan rewrite. I will tell you that once we start bringing out maps, your public participation rates will tend to go up.
Right. Not in my backyard. Exactly.
You know what I'm talking about.
Oh, yes. And we're not going to be looking at individual parcels. And that's the thing.
Right.
You know, 90% of the land in Putnam County is not even going to be touched by what we do on the map.
Correct.
95% probably. But the little bit that we look at is going to make somebody think, oh, my God, they're going to do that to me next. So, you know. Anybody else on public participation? We're never going to be able to do enough.
We had a comment from a fellow last Thursday night that I thought was interesting, and I wish I could hear some expounding from him on how he thought you could achieve. But his thing is he wanted to keep the rule, and he felt like it was easier to raise the income of the people, of the residents, than it is to create growth. And I've thought about that a lot, and I don't see how it's possible to do that, to raise the income of the citizens without having growth. I just don't see that happening. That
was a comment that came in from Craig Sherrar. Let's see if it's captured in notes here.
It is. I read it.
Yeah. It's somewhere. I read it. Where did you find it? Which one is it?
It's in the
I got 3 August 20th. But I got 3 of them.
Well, it's August 20th.
Yeah, it's the one that has the box at the top. It has Jim Troy, the people attendees.
Right.
Starting with
it's
Joel.
Easier to increase income instead of population. That's a statement and an observation from Craig Sherrar. Anyone know Craig Sherrar?
I know him very well.
I don't know him, but it would be interesting to see how. I wish I could have had some explanation, and I didn't. It's not something you can question people at on something like that. But it was just I've thought about that quite a bit since then, and it's like I can't possibly see how he's correct in that.
Anybody else want to comment on that, Jerry?
No comment.
You have to understand Craig's mentality.
Yeah.
Craig has been a partner with me on several projects over the past 15 years. I would have no comment on this, but I can understand the way his mind works is not the same as probably most of us in this meeting.
Aaron, any comment?
Nope.
I agree. I would find it hard to raise the income of people without raising the educational level, without raising the population. It just doesn't make sense to me.
You just got, Microsoft's not going to move to Putnam County. I hate to tell you, and that's what's going to take to get the income raised. And you're not going to make it happen that I can see.
Well, I think a lot of the personal income rate is tied to our tax valuation, our taxes, our per capita living expense, living cost, and living, where we stand, our socioeconomic status. So, and our educational level. I think that's a key piece is education.
Yeah. For sure.
So, but that was an interesting meeting, and I, I appreciate everybody who's commented, quite frankly. So you might want to note that he talked about the rat farm.
What farm?
Well, I saw him mention the area.
Yes, he talked about some questions and comments that had come in because people were afraid from any escapees. But anyhow, not to make light of Craig's comments, I appreciate him coming in.
He actually had some good comments on some other things that I agreed with about the, about what we put on the river, and as far as the Popeyes chicken and Taco Bell. I mean, he had some real. I thought the comments were dead on in some of the comments. What we've gotten from some of the growth, it was all negative, unfortunately. But
yep.
Well, his belief is fast food restaurants is not growth or business. And it's always been that. He's had that belief from a long time.
Well, it's always good to have the other side represented in a discussion. So he brought some good things to us to give us food for thought. So with that, we have gone through finished the 4 elements. We have talked about a lot of the input we've gotten. We've kind of come to an agreement on how to handle density in agricultural land. And when can we expect materials from you all prior to September 9th?
What you all are you talking to?
Talking to Mike and Brian.
That's good. That's a good you all.
I'm pulling up my.
They're getting paid.
I'm pulling up my calendar.
Ken, they're getting paid for this.
Hey, they told me, what do you get when you go site visit? $20, $15,
$30.
$30 a month.
Yeah. Big money. Big money.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get a van and we're gonna go tour and we're gonna have site visits for every ag piece there is. But
unfortunately, we can't all get in a van together because of the sunshine law.
It's only paid for when people apply.
I know it don't work. I was just playing with you.
I know.
I would love it if we could all go together to do site visits, but we can't with the sunshine law. So Mike and Brian, back to when do you think we can have materials for us?
Let me ask, what would you like? I mean, you want a markup of all 9 elements?
We'd like the markup of all 9 elements, preferably starting with land use. You can give them to us piecemeal if you need to. I'd like to have them with comments that we have already talked about as a commission, not comments that have come in otherwise.
Right. Okay.
And with data and analysis, if we can.
Okay.
I'd love to see some of their thoughts on the maps as well, if there's some way to do that.
Yeah, we'll be getting those.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to be able to break those down by commission district too.
The big map you talked about a big map in the lobby.
Yeah.
Is that the same map that we had in your office, Mike?
It'll be just like that, but it'll be, I believe, what we would have in the lobby would be what we are proposing as changes. So it would be that map, but with proposed changes on it. So they have same map with that the colors will be in different areas. Like I can tell you, the urban service in East Palatka will go up 207 a ways into areas that are presently green or agriculture now on the map.
Right.
Going down 17, where you have ag and rural residential, will go probably also will expand some urban service into that area too.
What about that Highway 100 going west or north or whatever direction it goes?
Nothing on that yet.
Yeah, I mean, those are all discussion items that can be discussed as to how far you want to run whatever land use, rural residential or some other land use out
urban reserve
that area.
Well, urban service would be good there because we're going to have water and sewer,
Yeah.
the areas that I'm thinking about.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, and that, I mean, I tell you from a staff standpoint, that's where our first look and major changes were associated, where the county either already has or will in the very near future in their plans have already funded to expand water and sewer and to designate those areas urban service.
And those of you who are pretty proficient with using the computer, you can always go out to the county GIS site and look at the map with the land use overlay on it and zoom in as tight as you want to zoom in. So it is available out on the GIS site for the county.
So that
the current one is.
That has the future land use on it.
The current, yes, it does have an
as it
overlay.
exists today, the same map that was on my wall. Yes.
The same one that I looked at.
The same one we have right
Okay.
now in our packet. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I can't read that little map.
Well, you could go out on the county's GIS site and zoom down. Now, GIS is not as intuitive as Microsoft. And if you've not used it, it's a little tricky.
But what, GIS?
Yes.
Or Microsoft?
GIS.
Well,
Geographic Information Systems.
I could use the GIS. I don't know if I could use the Microsoft.
Okay. Well, that's one way you can look at individual sites and look at more detail if you want to, prior to getting the maps that we're going to get.
Okay. How soon can I get a copy, Mike, of what your proposed changes are before the meeting?
Are you talking the map or the policies?
Well,
No,
let's talk policies first. Let's talk
Oh.
policies first.
Well, I wanted the map. I don't care about the policies. The policies, we've already done the policies, and he's going to clean it up so we can look at it.
Well, that's right. Pardon?
I believe the email that we got on August 7th is basically that already. They've already cleaned up all
that. That is a lot of it. Yeah.
Right.
Based
that's
on
a lot
some of the
it,
discussion, some of the more recent discussions, there will be some minor changes.
Right. But most all the changes we've already discussed are in there.
Already, I've got 9 elements. Yes.
Yeah.
But there are also some things that we didn't discuss that got put in there. Right. Yeah, we don't need those. So I'd like to get a cleaned up set with the things that the commission has talked about up through tonight. Could you have that to us the Friday before the 9th?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I pick it up at the office. Could I pick it up? Could y'all print it and let me pick it up?
Yep.
And Mike, we're getting down toward the end. Can you go ahead and mail those out?
Yep.
Mail a copy of the full set out to everybody with the map. And if you can mail an 11 by 17 map, that would be good.
I'll pick mine up, Mike. You don't need to waste that postage on me. That gives me a good excuse to get out of my house.
Yeah, I can pick mine up too.
Well, if you'll send us an email and tell us when they're ready, and we can tell you whether to mail them or we'll pick them up. How about that?
Yep, we can do that.
Okay.
That'd be great.
And Brian, we can have the map about the same time?
Yeah, it might be on Friday, but yes, about the same time.
Friday or Monday?
Yeah.
I know your GIS team is working on that, and I understand GIS is not the simplest thing in the world. There's a lot of work to be done on that.
And unfortunately, given my lack of technological prowess, I can't just jump in and do it myself because I haven't got a clue.
Hey, you're with me.
Me too.
Hey, Brian, you don't
We got
want
a lot of company.
GIS.
No, I'm too old to do that, man.
I do know how to do it, and it will just absolutely fry your brain. So I know how to use the final product and get around it, but I also have done the maps. So I think that would be great. Folks, I thank you very much. This has been a very productive session. Just going through everybody for the good of the cause. Tom, do you have anything else to add?
No.
Joel?
No, Susan, I want to thank you for all the time and effort you're putting into this thing, because you're doing an awesome job.
Hey, I enjoy it. I really do. This is kind of what I did for a living.
We knew you were crazy, Susan. We just didn't know how crazy.
George, did you have something to add? And thank you for being here.
You're welcome. No, I've got nothing to add. Enjoyed the conversation.
Well, thank you. Do you think we're on target with what we did with Mr. Kramer and suggesting he put his stuff in writing? And
I think at this point, that's probably a good idea.
And discouraging his going between us and the chamber.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd categorize it that way, but it's probably a good idea.
I'm being
sure
nice.
I don't think he's got that message yet.
I don't think so either.
I'm a hardhead. I can beat that nail again. Jerry, anything else for the good of the cause?
No, ma'am.
Aaron?
No, it was a good meeting tonight. I think we made some progress, and I'm looking forward to the maps.
Yes,
and
I think we all are.
Thank you, Susan, for your leadership and all you're doing. All this hour that you've put in, way and above the rest of us, I know.
Well,
Absolutely.
It's kind of something I accepted when I realized I was going to be chairman. And then when I realized this was going to come up this year, I was like, I can do this. Ken, anything else for the good of the cause?
Nah, we're good.
The only thing I would add is we had talked last time about having the videos of our meetings and our forums and our workshops available. They are all now available on YouTube. Just search Putnam County, Florida Planning Commission or Putnam County Planning Commission and just enjoy yourself as far as you can without going to sleep. But everything's up, including some from last night. So, yep, at least until we finish this process so the commission can go back and what did they do and how did they do that? So, and I've been keeping Terry Turner up to date on how we're doing and what's going on. So, and I'm sure sometime in the near future, I will be briefing Mr. Adamsack as to what we are doing and where we are and how we're going. So, folks, you're a good group to work with. I really appreciate you. And Mike, yes. Brian, Jacob, I was really pleased to see yesterday the County Commission and the Fire and Rescue Committee giving thanks to Jacob and to Jim Troyana for all the work they did on the Fire and Rescue Service meetings. And Jacob, you're just wonderful. We appreciate you very, very much.
His wife told me the same thing the other day.
His mom told me.
Oh.
There you go.
She was working downtown at tax deeds.
Wow.
Yep.
Well, I think we've gotten a long ways on this thing. We're not quite there, but we can see that there's some daylight now at the end of this tunnel, I think. So we're getting there. Thank you all very much. And plan to talk to you in 2 weeks.
Okay.
Good.
All right, sounds good.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.